The Montana landscape of 2032 stretched endlessly under a pale autumn sky, its rolling hills dotted with abandoned farmhouses that stood like silent sentinels against the march of time. Lena Morales adjusted her camera strap as she walked through the ruins of what had once been the Henderson farm, her boots crunching on frost-covered earth. At 35, she had the weathered look of someone who had spent years chasing stories that others preferred to leave buried. Lena had come to Montana to document the dying rural communities, part of a larger piece she was writing about America's forgotten corners. But as she photographed the skeletal remains of barns and rusted farming equipment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something else was happening in this desolate place. The locals she'd interviewed spoke in hushed tones about government vehicles seen at night, about lights flickering in buildings that were supposed to be empty. The media landscape of 2032 was dominated by celebrity culture and sensationalized science. Gene therapy had become commonplace, and the line between enhancement and manipulation grew blurrier each day. Lena had built her career investigating the intersection of technology and ethics, but nothing had prepared her for what she was about to uncover. It was on her third day in Montana that Lena found the entrance. Hidden beneath what appeared to be another abandoned warehouse, she discovered a maintenance hatch that led to a sophisticated underground facility. The sterile white corridors stretched far beneath the earth, illuminated by LED strips that hummed with electric life. Her heart pounded as she descended, camera ready, knowing instinctively that she had stumbled upon something extraordinary. The first thing she noticed was the cold. Not just the chill of being underground, but the artificial cold of cryogenic preservation. Through reinforced glass windows, she saw row upon row of tanks containing floating figures, their faces peaceful in artificial sleep. But what made her blood run cold wasn't the sight of the clones themselves. It was the files scattered on nearby desks, each bearing the name and photograph of Hollywood's biggest stars. Amelia Stone, the Oscar-winning actress, known for her charitable work and perfect public image. Jake Morrison, the action star whose every movie broke box office records. Diana Cross, the singer, whose voice had defined a generation. The files contained detailed genetic profiles, behavioral analyses, and what appeared to be complete personality maps. Someone was creating perfect copies of the world's most beloved celebrities. Lena began photographing everything, her hands steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had been an investigative journalist for 12 years, but this discovery dwarfed anything she had ever encountered. As she worked, she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. Security cameras tracked her progress, their red lights blinking like watching eyes. Over the following weeks, Lena threw herself into the investigation with an intensity that worried her few remaining friends. She lost access to her usual mainstream outlets. Her editor at the Chronicle claimed budget cuts, but Lena knew better. Someone was pulling strings, ensuring her story wouldn't see the light of day through traditional channels. The threats began subtly. Anonymous emails suggesting she take a vacation. Phone calls that disconnected when she answered. Then came the men in white uniforms, always just visible in her peripheral vision, never quite close enough to be confronted. They followed her to coffee shops, waited outside her apartment building, appeared in the background of photos she took months earlier in unrelated locations. Lena reached out to Marcus Williams, a freelance hacker she had worked with on previous investigations involving technology companies. Marcus operated from a cluttered apartment in Denver, surrounded by monitors that cast blue light across his thin face. When Lena explained what she had found, his usual sardonic demeanor evaporated. "This is bigger than corporate espionage," Marcus said, his fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "These systems are connected to major entertainment corporations, talent agencies, even government databases. Someone has been planning this for years." Together, they began mapping the conspiracy. The facility in Montana was just one part of a vast network. Financial records showed money flowing from shell companies tied to major entertainment conglomerates. The clones weren't random. They were carefully selected based on market research, public approval ratings, and projected profitability. "Look at this," Marcus said, pointing to patterns in the data. "The original celebrities have been gradually withdrawing from public life, claiming exhaustion, taking sabbaticals, entering rehab for disorders that don't quite make sense. Meanwhile, their public appearances have become more perfect. No off days, no bad angles, no controversial statements." Lena felt sick as the implications became clear. How many of the celebrities she had interviewed over the years were actually clones? How long had this been going on? And who was ultimately responsible? Her investigation led her to Dr. Victor Halsey, a brilliant geneticist, who had been dismissed from several prestigious institutions for ethical violations. Halsey had disappeared from public view 5 years earlier, around the same time the clone program had apparently begun. Lena discovered that he was the scientific director of the entire operation, convinced that he was advancing human evolution by creating improved versions of humanity's most admired figures. The surveillance intensified. Lena's apartment was searched while she was out, though nothing seemed to be taken. Her computer was hacked multiple times, forcing her to rely on encrypted communications and secure networks. She began staying in different hotels each night, paying cash, avoiding patterns that could be tracked. During this time, she noticed something strange happening around celebrity culture in general. Fans, who had once expressed nuanced opinions about their favorite stars, began speaking in eerily similar ways about how perfect they had become. Social media was flooded with observations about how Amelia Stone looked exactly the same at 40 as she had at 25, how Jake Morrison's performances had reached impossible heights of consistency, how Diana Cross's voice seemed to improve with age rather than showing any wear. Lena's investigation received an unexpected boost when she was contacted by Sarah Kim, a former lab assistant who had worked directly under Dr. Halsey. Sarah agreed to meet Lena at a diner in Billings, her hands shaking as she clutched a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "You have to understand," Sarah said, glancing nervously at the door. "Dr. Halsey isn't evil. He genuinely believes he's improving humanity. But what he's done, it's gone too far." Sarah revealed that the clones were more than just physical duplicates. Using advanced neural mapping and memory implantation techniques, they possessed all the memories and skills of their originals. But they were programmed to be more compliant, more marketable, free from the messy contradictions and imperfections that made real humans unpredictable. "The worst part," Sarah continued, "is what happens to the originals. Most of them are kept sedated in a separate facility. Some are killed outright and their deaths covered up. They've created an entire infrastructure for replacing public figures without anyone noticing." As Lena probed deeper, Sarah made a confession that left her reeling. "I wasn't just Dr. Halsey's assistant," she said quietly. "I was his first successful experiment. I'm a clone myself of his daughter who died in a car accident 20 years ago. I have all her memories, her personality, her love for her father. But I also have enough of my own development to know that what he's doing is wrong." This revelation added another layer of complexity to Lena's investigation. If clones could develop independent thoughts and moral reasoning, what did that say about the nature of consciousness and identity? Were the celebrity clones prisoners or willing participants in their own replacement? The story was becoming too big for any traditional outlet to handle. Major networks were tied too closely to the entertainment industry to risk such an expose. Lena realized she would have to go public through alternative channels, using the same social media platforms that had helped create the celebrity cult culture enabling this conspiracy. Her chance came sooner than expected. Marcus had discovered that a major activation event was planned for the following week, a live television special, celebrating Hollywood's biggest stars broadcast globally. All the major clones would be present, and Lena suspected this was intended as a complete replacement of the originals, a point of no return for the conspiracy. She devised a plan to infiltrate the event with Sarah's help. Sarah still had access codes to the facility, and she agreed to help Lena document the activation process in real time. It was incredibly dangerous. If they were caught, both women would likely disappear permanently. The night of the infiltration, Lena felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. She and Sarah entered the facility through a service tunnel, avoiding the increased security around the main entrances. The underground complex was busier than Lena had ever seen it, with technicians preparing for the mass activation. In the central chamber, dozens of clones stood in individual containment fields, each one a perfect replica of a beloved celebrity. Dr. Halsey moved among them like a conductor, preparing an orchestra, making final adjustments to their neural implants. Lena began recording everything, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. "Tonight, we complete the transformation," Dr. Halsey announced to his assembled team. "No more unpredictable scandals. No more aging stars disappointing their fans. We give the world the perfect versions of the people they love." The activation began at midnight. One by one, the clones opened their eyes, their faces lighting up with programmed personalities. Lena watched in horrified fascination as they began interacting with handlers, already slipping into their roles as improved versions of real people. But something went wrong. As the clones awakened, Lena noticed several of them exhibiting unexpected behaviors. Some looked confused. Others seemed to be struggling against their programming. The clone of Diana Cross began singing, but the song was different from anything the real Diana had ever performed, something haunting and melancholic that spoke of imprisonment and lost identity. Dr. Halsey noticed the anomalies too. His perfect event was turning into something chaotic and unpredictable. Security was called in as some clones began to malfunction, their carefully constructed personalities fragmenting under the weight of conflicting memories and impulses. Lena seized her moment. She began broadcasting live on multiple social media platforms, simultaneously streaming the entire scene to the world. Within minutes, her feeds were being shared thousands of times. The world watched in shock as the truth about their beloved celebrities was revealed in real time. This is Lena Morales reporting from an underground facility in Montana. She spoke into her camera as chaos erupted around her. "What you're seeing is the mass activation of clones designed to replace Hollywood's biggest stars. These aren't the people you think you know, they're genetically engineered copies, programmed to be perfect versions of real human beings." Security forces converged on her position, but the damage was done. The stream had been recorded and was already being redistributed across the internet faster than it could be suppressed. Lena kept broadcasting as long as possible, showing the faces of the clones, the technological apparatus of their creation, and Dr. Halsey himself, as he tried desperately to contain the situation. "The real question," Lena shouted over the alarm klaxons, "is how many of the celebrities you've been watching, admiring, loving for the past few years are actually these clones? How long has this been going on, and what happened to the real people?" As security finally reached her, Lena made sure to capture Dr. Halsey's face as he recognized the full extent of his exposure. The man who had believed he was perfecting humanity looked suddenly old and fragile, his grand vision crumbling around him. Lena was detained, but the story was already beyond suppression. Within hours, the hashtag #MarClonegate was trending globally. Traditional media outlets, initially reluctant to cover the story, were forced to respond as public demand for information became overwhelming. The first celebrity to break cover was Jake Morrison himself, not the clone but the original, who had been held captive for 18 months. In a shaky video uploaded to his verified social media accounts, he revealed that he had been replaced during what was supposed to be a routine medical procedure. His clone had been living his life, making movies, maintaining relationships, while he was kept sedated in a facility outside Las Vegas. Other revelations followed quickly. Amelia Stone's original had died during the cloning process, a fact covered up for 2 years, while her clone won an Oscar for a performance she never gave. Diana Cross was found alive, but traumatized, having watched through monitoring equipment as her clone lived a sanitized version of her life. The public reaction was explosive. Fans felt betrayed, violated, manipulated. Those who had suspected something was wrong felt vindicated, while others struggled to accept that their beloved stars had been replaced by artificial beings. The entertainment industry went into crisis mode as the full extent of the conspiracy became clear. Dr. Halsey was arrested, along with dozens of his associates. During his first interrogation, he showed no remorse, insisting that his clones were superior to the originals in every way. "I gave the world what it wanted," he declared. "Perfect celebrities who would never disappoint, never age, never fall from grace." The clones were more talented, more beautiful, more consistent than the originals ever were. The legal implications were staggering. How do you prosecute someone for being a clone? Do clones have rights? What about the contracts and relationships formed with clone identities? The case of Diana Cross's clone was particularly complex. She had married her manager during the time she was active, and he claimed to love the clone, not the original. International governments scrambled to create new laws addressing the rights of artificial beings with human consciousness. The Montana facility became a symbol of the need for strict regulation of genetic engineering and cloning research. Protesters gathered outside, some demanding the clones be destroyed as abominations, others insisting they deserved protection as conscious beings. Lena found herself at the center of a global debate about the nature of humanity itself. She testified before congressional committees, appeared on countless news programs, and became the face of the movement for transparency in genetic research. But the experience had changed her profoundly. She had uncovered a conspiracy that challenged basic assumptions about identity, consciousness, and what it means to be human. The clones themselves became perhaps the most tragic figures in the entire saga. Some, like Sarah Kim, had developed enough independent consciousness to understand their situation and choose their own paths. Others seemed trapped between programmed personalities and emerging individual thoughts, struggling with existential questions no human had ever faced. Diana Cross's clone, who had begun calling herself Echo, became an advocate for clone rights. "I have the memories of being Diana Cross," she testified before a Senate subcommittee. "But I also have 18 months of my own experiences, my own growth, my own thoughts. I am not Diana Cross, but I am also not nothing. I am something new, something that deserves to exist." The entertainment industry faced a reckoning unlike anything in its history. Public trust in celebrity culture plummeted as people questioned the authenticity of every performance, every interview, every public appearance. New certification systems were developed to verify the identity of public figures, but the damage to the industry's credibility was lasting. Some celebrities who had been replaced by clones struggled to reclaim their lives and careers. Jake Morrison found that audiences preferred his clone's more polished performances to his own more variable acting. Amelia Stone's estate sued the studio that had released films starring her clone without her consent, leading to landmark legal precedents about posthumous identity rights. The ripple effects extended far beyond entertainment. Questions arose about clones in other fields: politics, business, sports. Several world leaders submitted to genetic verification tests after public pressure. The technology that had made the celebrity cloning possible was examined for other potential applications and abuses. Marcus Williams, the hacker, who had helped Lena uncover the conspiracy, found himself recruited by a new government task force created to monitor illegal cloning activities. He testified that the technology used in Montana was just the beginning. More advanced applications might be able to create clones that were virtually indistinguishable from originals, even to sophisticated genetic testing. Public reaction remained divided. Some saw the clones as victims of an unethical experiment who deserved protection and rights. Others viewed them as aberrations that threatened the fundamental nature of human identity. Religious groups grappled with theological questions about souls and artificial consciousness. Scientists debated the implications for understanding consciousness itself. Lena continued her investigative work, now focusing on the broader implications of human cloning technology. She discovered evidence of similar facilities in other countries, part of what appeared to be a global network of cloning operations, targeting not just celebrities but political figures, business leaders, and other influential people. The Montana facility was eventually converted into a research center dedicated to studying the psychological and physiological effects of cloning on artificial consciousness. Some of the clones volunteered to participate in studies that might help future artificial beings adapt to existence. Others chose to disappear entirely, seeking new identities, far from the public eye. Dr. Halsey died in prison, while awaiting trial, apparently by suicide, though conspiracy theorists suggested he might have been silenced by those funding his research. His death meant that many details about the cloning process and the full extent of the conspiracy died with him. Years later, the events in Montana continued to influence society. Clone rights activists pushed for legislation recognizing artificial beings as a new category of person with specific protections. The Montana Accords established international guidelines for genetic research and cloning technology. Celebrity culture evolved to emphasize authenticity and vulnerability, as audiences craved proof that the people they admired were genuinely human. The question of what makes someone real remained central to public discourse. If a clone had all the memory skills and personality traits of the original, what made them less real? Echo, the Diana Cross clone, became a philosopher of sorts, writing and speaking about the nature of artificial consciousness and the right to self-determination for created beings. Lena often returned to Montana, walking through the hills where she had first discovered the facility. The landscape remained largely unchanged, but the questions raised by her discovery continued to shape the world. She had exposed a conspiracy that went beyond simple deception. She had forced humanity to confront fundamental questions about identity, consciousness, and what it truly means to be human. The story of the Montana cloning facility became a watershed moment in human history, comparable to the development of the atomic bomb or the mapping of the human genome. It marked the point when humanity could no longer take for granted the authenticity of public figures or the uniqueness of individual identity. In her final report on the incident, Lena wrote, "The clone conspiracy wasn't just about replacing celebrities. It was about replacing the messy, imperfect, wonderfully unpredictable nature of humanity with something more controllable, more marketable, more perfect." In doing so, it forced us to appreciate the flaws and inconsistencies that make us truly human. The clones among us are not our enemies. They are mirrors that reflect our own questions about authenticity, identity, and what it means to be real. The debate continues to this day, but one thing is certain: the world after Montana is fundamentally different from the world before it. The line between human and artificial consciousness has been blurred forever, and humanity must navigate a future where the question, "Are you real?" carries weight it never had before. As technology continues to advance, the lessons of Montana serve as a constant reminder of the need for ethical oversight in scientific research. The clones themselves, those who chose to remain in the public eye, have become advocates for responsible innovation and the protection of human dignity in all its forms, artificial and natural alike. The Montana facility may have been shut down, but its legacy lives on in the ongoing conversation about what makes us human, what rights artificial consciousness deserves, and how we define authenticity in an age where anything can be replicated. Lena Morales' discovery changed more than just the entertainment industry. It changed humanity's understanding of itself.